At any point during this recording, IY, and the rest of you obviously, I would like you to say time, and I will jot down, according to my Audacity recording, what minute, or to the nearest minute where you have said time. And then at the end of it, we will do a random number generator to see whose game is getting picked for Alex's D game.
Wait, what? I don't get that.
So at any point during this recording, if you say when you say time, and I will mark down to the nearest minute what time you've said time. So it could be 20 minutes into it, you say time, I'll mark down 20. And then at the end of it, we will random number generate something between the 1 and whatever this recording ends up being. And then whoever is closest that'll be the game Alex gets.
You do know, right? Alex is going to try and troll and do it at the last possible minute.
That's okay, because my plan was to do it at the very first.
Yeah, if he doesn't want to play his game, sure, yeah.
Wait, so I guess you want to be the guy who's in the middle?
Yeah. But obviously we don't know how long this is really going to be.
Two of us have a lot to say about this since we finished it, so...
Alright, Hans is going for 2 minutes.
Let's see.
Also, are we just going to say the games after it's
over?
Yeah,
so the plan is after we finish recording here, we'll do the actual pre-show recording for your thing.
Okay, that's fine.
And it'll just be me randomly generating a number.
That is a bold time, Hans.
Thank you.
Bold.
I is what I like to think is just...
Well, Hans always blows his load early, so it makes sense.
Okay, so preamble topic that I've just pulled out of my arse at the very last second there, okay? As we are playing Monster Hunter, which is chock full of weird and wonderful creatures, we're going to do a wee game. Which is going to require a lot of editing on Nick's part, so enjoy this, Nick.
Why is my pen wet?
What?
My pen is wet.
So, I'm going to put
Why is there water in my pen?
Nick, would you shut the fuck up?
Sorry, but this is like a whole bit of water just came out of my pen.
So, I'm going to put a picture into the chat, and hopefully it won't be titled like what it is.
I figured out why there's water in my pen, sorry. This is the pen I used to stir my drink the other day. Sorry.
What the hell? Do you not have a spoon?
I got like a pint of dilutant and it hadn't mixed properly when I put the water in, but I'd already brought it upstairs. And I was like, I can't be arsed going all the way downstairs to get a spoon. So I used a pen that was sitting nearby. And this happens to be the pen.
Why not just use your finger?
My finger's not that long. It doesn't go to the bottom of a pint glass without causing it to overflow.
When you swirl it, the stuff will mix anyway. It's basic physics.
Yeah.
Anyway, preamble topic.
Sorry.
Okay, so I just got to put pictures of funny animals with funny names. You have to guess what the name is.
Okay.
All right. I have 8. We'll cut this if it's too long, Nick. Okay.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Hans wants this episode to be as short as possible.
The first one is in the chat now.
Oh, God.
So just throw out a suggestion of what this weird creature
It's a fish.
could be called. Yeah, but what's it called?
Fish.
Right.
Okay, no, it's not called a fish.
Is it a funny name? Or is it just a weird
All
name?
these are funny or weird names, yes.
Dick Gobbler.
You are not far off. Why do you want to throw something?
I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna. If that was the close answer, I don't think I'm gonna get it.
This is a spiny lump sucker. So it is.
So do I get a point?
Yep, you get a point. Sure.
Hell yeah.
A member of the fish family called the lumpsuckers because of their spherical shape. Next one.
Sexy bug.
You're playing into all the sexual...
Yeah, I'm praying on that Hans is immature and all these will have some form of sexual innuendo in their name.
I mean, it does, but I wouldn't say it's sexy bug.
You wouldn't. I would.
I thought that was gonna be like what an actual like dung beetle looks
Is it?
like.
Yeah, is it a dung beetle?
No,
Do you guys not know what a dung beetle looks like?
No, like I do, but
it has beetle in its name. I'll
Sex
give you that.
beetle.
It's not a sex beetle. It is a pleasing fungus beetle.
Who
okay.
names these things?
People have far. There was 3 insects recently named after the legendary birds from Pokemon. Did you not hear
Nice.
about this?
That's pretty dope.
Next one.
Oh, look at it.
What is that? Is that like a
Is
weasel?
that a real animal?
Is that a weasel wearing armor?
This is a real animal. Literally, if you say what you see, you will probably get this.
This looks
right.
like a Digimon.
Armored cock?
It's. Oh, did you say armored cock?
Alex, get that checked out. Armored
Well, it
weasel.
It looks
No.
part armadillo, like the top
It does
of it
look
looks.
part, yeah. And then part weasel,
Well-
so it's a Digimon.
Armored dildo?
This is Armadillomon.
Why do you keep saying? Right, I said say what you see. Alex, use your
Alright,
eyes
okay.
checked.
I did-
Yeah, that's what he
Put your
sees.
pants back on,
That's
come
what he
on.
You
sees.
are a pervert.
Alex has his pants off while recording. That's what we've established.
This is.
a fingernail.
God damn
To be
it.
fair,
No.
Closer.
This is the pink fairy armadillo.
Okay, so this was completely away from the whole innuendo thing.
Yeah, I didn't say they were all innuendos.
Okay,
You just
alright.
assumed.
That's definitely a Digimon somewhere.
Next one.
Okay, is this an innuendo?
No.
Leaf squirrel.
Close.
Wait, hang on. I mean,
Is it not a frog?
Why would you say squirrel?
Kind of looks like a squirrel.
is that a frog?
Is it a frog? I can't tell what shape this thing is, to be
Like,
perfectly honest.
it's so camouflaged, you can't even tell. It's like
Exactly,
a lizardy
man.
thing.
It's doing its job.
It is a gecko. I can give you that
Leaf
much.
Okay.
gecko.
Close. Very
Gex
close.
from that PS1 game.
No. This is.
a stick gecko?
No. Satanic leaf-tailed gecko.
Jesus.
Oh,
Why is
so
it
close.
satanic?
Look at it.
It's
Oh, wait, yeah. It's bright. It's like a deep red, Alex.
It looks
Oh.
like lava.
Does it? Hang on, let me open this again. I don't see any red, guys.
Yeah,
You're
it's,
colorblind.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry to tell. I'm sorry to break the news to you, Alex, but you're colorblind.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to the Not So Super Bash Bros presents Game Club for March 2021. Yes, Game Club is back. The monthly video podcast review thing where we take turn picking games, go play them for the month, and come back and discuss them for your listening pleasure. This month, I picked Monster Hunter World from Capcom, and as ever, I am your host, the Monster Hunter, Nick Davis, joined by the MILF Hunter, Hans Davis,
Ah, what a bite you.
Dog the Bounty Hunter, Alex Proudfoot,
What?
and World of Warcraft's only survival hunter, IY Chung.
we're a rare breed. Oh,
Oh, Jesus, what's happened?
I just dropped my phone.
Man down.
So, how's everyone?
Yeah, good about yourself.
Yeah, can't complain. Gucci.
Vibing.
Yeah,
I'm feeling pretty uncomfortable after that preamble topic.
good. I like a nice, uncomfortable game club. Yes, Monster
Why?
Hunter World, the third-person action game from Capcom, originally released in January 2018 on the PS4 and Xbox One, with a later release that year on the PC. IY, why did you pick Monster Hunter World?
Because I finally have a PC that can run Monster Hunter World.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Shoutouts to
Do myself
Nick
and Bunchy.
Yeah.
That is not literally the reason. Why were you interested in it in the first place? Apart from this being the reason why you can finally play it, why did this game intrigue you?
Because I thought it just looked like the best version of like other
This
monster hunting
formula.
games.
Yeah.
Like because I played Dauntless and I played shout out to Alex here, God Eater.
Hell yeah.
They're not great games. Like, they're not great games.
But man, the bullet crafting system.
Yeah. So and I've played a Monster Hunter game before on like the DS and stuff. So this was like a really cool time, I thought, to like get back into it.
So, as ever, I have broke this down into 3 categories.
What are those categories, Nick?
Gameplay,
Awesome.
story characters.
Tickle my balls.
What? And why was Monster Hunter World the one to break into mainstream media?
I don't know. You tell me.
That's what we're going to discuss, Hans.
Love it.
But before
Grand.
we kick into our first category, I have to ask, as ever, how far did everyone get in Monster Hunter World? And you can correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, I think I got to the first Zora Magdaros fight out of, I think there's a couple in the game, isn't there? Or the only scripted one, I think he comes back every so often.
Yeah, there's 2.
Yeah, so I think I got to just before the first one of those, before I kind of decided this wasn't for me and I tapped out. Hans?
I think I clocked in about 20 to 25 hours. 20 hours-ish, yeah.
Alex?
I finished it. Well, finished in air quotes if you can finish this game.
You hit credits.
Yeah.
Hour.
I finished it and then accidentally did the Witcher DLC thing.
You didn't accidentally. Bungie forced you into it. You were playing it on stream, but like, oh yeah, do that. So, gameplay. It's Monster Hunter has always had a very specific style about it, I would say. It's always been this very slow-paced, deliberate combat that kind of, as you kind of whittle down the monsters. And I don't think World's any different. World is, I believe, the 5th mainline, in quotes, like version of Monster Hunter, and they've kind of kept to this formula. And in a game that is very much centered around the combat and the way you play it and how you fight the monsters, it just really didn't click with me in any way, shape, or form. It is very slow pace, and I just think it's the lack of immediate feedback, so to speak, when you're fighting the monsters, that I think just really put me off the combat, and I didn't feel like I was enjoying it, because you could sit there and hit a monster for a long time and not really know if you're actually doing the right thing for a good while until maybe you start to see some of the signs that they are weakened or things like that. And it just, I think it's a system that can work, but it's just a system that personally I did not enjoy, and I'd like to get your kind of opinions on the combat system as a whole.
Go on, Iwa. You're the biggest advocate of this. You go on first.
It's well. Firstly, Nick's opinion's wrong, by the way, and will be wrong for the entire episode. But no, I think
I love Palicos. You're wrong.
No, I think you are right. Like, it is this slow, deliberate thing. But I think if you're worried about like stuff like feedback from the game, like the actual damage you deal, like it's in numbers and it's color coded based on like if you're doing well, essentially, if you're hitting the right things. I never find that to be like an issue unless you are like hitting spots which like you just deflect off. Of course.
So I suppose like this thing that I kind of related it to, just in terms of like I'm hitting this big thing and am I dealing damage, is like when you say face like giant enemies in something like Dark Souls was the first thing that came into my head, obviously because it's the slow paced combat game everyone knows. At least say in something like Dark Souls you have a health bar and you can see the health bar going down and things like that, and I think it's just like that sort of feedback you're not getting. Like hitting a monster and seeing 40 pop up gives me no context of, is that a good hit? Is that a bad hit? Could I be doing more? How much is 40 percentage wise? And it's stuff like that that's kind of just like, I get that is probably a lot of the appeal in this game for some people, but for me it was just a big turn off.
I feel like though it's like you said, like it's a style choice, I think, in these sort of games where like you're having to read, a lot of this game is about reading the body language of a monster. Like you look at it, to telegraph an attack, you read the body language of it to see if it's hurting, that sort of thing. So I think that's, I can understand why that wouldn't, because it is a very foreign concept kind of nowadays, especially in like a third-person fantasy. Like it is a fantasy, I suppose, game. Like it's a big step away from the norm for that, so like that would put a lot of people off.
So one thing which I only find, so this is actually one of my issues with the game, is that it's very bad at teaching you anything.
Yeah. Which I think has been a complaint levied at kind of the entire series. Like I think from the get-go, it has always been seen as this kind of impenetrable thing for a long time.
Yeah, and so like in order to stay on this point, so I didn't know this until Bungie was watching me play the last part of the game. Beside the minimap, do you know how there is all your different targets?
Yeah.
Line up at the bottom? Yeah. Below that, which I never realized because it's fucking tiny, there is a heartbeat sensor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it tells you sort of how the monster is doing, which I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have mattered, but like, I guess that's a bit of feedback.
I knew it was there, but I can't say I ever like looked at it regularly.
Yeah, I knew it was there. But I didn't really use it to scale how the battle was progressing.
So like, I think that is my gripe with the combat, but I also do think there is good things about the combat. Like I think it's very impressive that they have like 10 archetypes of weapons, and there are similarities, but overall, I think they've actually managed to create like 10 pretty individual like archetypes of weapons, which I think is very impressive, and they all feel good to use. And and I think it's good that like people will naturally gravitate towards ones that fit the way they want to play the game, which I think is like it's an incredible feat. I think just to have that, the fact that they have 10 that all feel like good to play as, I think that's a really cool thing. And I also just think in terms of just the hunts themselves and the sort of emergent situations that can kind of come out, like, oh, I'm tracking this monster, and then suddenly, oh fuck, this bit of land fell out, and I fell into another monster's lair. Shit like that's really cool, and I think it's really awesome. And like those sort of scenarios do provide like really memorable moments to like kind of chat about and share with your friends. And I think the overall gameplay loop itself is fine. It's just when the crux of the game is the combat against the monsters, that's the bit that kind of I'm sad I don't like it more.
Nick, I still stand by that this Diablos thing doesn't exist. You can say, oh, I fell down to another monster's lair, but we all went and looked for this thing for a good half an hour and it did not show. So I'm calling bullshit.
Hey man, there is a story mission where you have to go on.
You have to fight one.
No. I'm not saying it's not real within the world of the game, but the one that Nick saw that one time that none of us else did, bullshit.
I think it's quite funny because I actually have like the opposite issue of the game where like I think the combat feels real good. Actually, I think because the weapons, like you said, are quite good. I think the actual moving around and fighting, like it's like it feels clunky as hell at the start. Like you just don't quite get it. But later on, like it feels fine.
It's a control system that I think just takes time getting used to. I don't necessarily think it's bad. It is just different. So it just feels so different to anything else you've probably played.
Yeah. The issue I actually have is all the stuff outside of it. So in terms of like the hunting part, like, so I only thought about this the other day. So I played like so if we break it down a bit, so obviously there's the fighting part, which we've started discussing, but the parts like around that I think could be better, right? So, whenever Alex was like finishing the game, there is this part in the game at the last like 20% of the game where you have to do a lot of like investigations and tracking. And what that means is finding some tracks and finding more tracks to fill up a bar.
Yeah.
And that's really not fun, right? And it's a shame because, like, if you think about what it means to hunt, like, tracking is a big part of that. And I remember playing the Monster Hunter game I used to play. And this is quite apparent. It's actually one, I'm going to call it a downside of having it seamless. So if you look at the map, you see how it's, like, numbered. So back in the day, obviously, that was necessary because you had to load.
Yeah, you load in between areas.
Exactly. So what used to happen is whenever you got a monster low-ish or whatever, it would run off into a load screen, and it could appear essentially like
anywhere.
It didn't have these kind of limitations that you have here. And so what would happen is you would actually have to track that again. And I think if I recall, maybe I think of a different game, but I'm pretty sure what would happen is like it would like scare birds or something, and you would investigate that. And like that feels more like you actually doing a thing rather than like, I find enough tracks, now I can permanently hunt this thing. It's really weird that the magic flies you have just like find stuff.
Yeah. No, I definitely remember, like, I dabbled, I think, with one that was on the PSP. And, like, yeah, I definitely remember part of it was constantly trying to keep track of the monster, and you didn't have any way to just be like, oh, it's going this way. And yeah, as you said, like, part of it was because the monster could essentially cheat by, like, going anywhere in the map. Once it goes through a loading screen, it could turn up anywhere, unlike you will turn up in whatever area you go towards. And yeah, I feel like they almost need to give the monster only ways only it can go or something like that, because
there is a bit of that.
It's very easy just to teal a monster until it gets to the next bit it's going to stop at.
So I had a massive issue with some of the levels. The flying ones, like I remember hunting one of the flying ones, and it was permanently in the air, and obviously an X would appear in a zone where it's supposed to land. But every time I got to the X, it was in the air again. And like, it's hard to predict where that X is going to be. So you can't be in the right area. So you kind of just have to follow the trail and hope the X is on the trail. And I think I spent 20 minutes trying to track one monster before it actually stayed on the ground longer than a couple of minutes.
I've definitely had issues where, like, I would, like, chase after a flying monster and then, like, it would fly off again. But it never, like, stayed in the air or anything. Like,
this refused to land. It was actually insane.
This is why you gotta bring flashbugs with you and shoot out of the sky.
That's why you gotta go for
but it was like
range class.
So high. Like, it wasn't even, like, in targetable range. It was, like, properly high.
Bowgun, Alex. Telling you, bowgun. Underrated class.
That sounds more like a bug kind of thing rather than like a design choice, obviously.
It's like a monster's AI is like freaked out or something.
That sounds more like that.
That is another like potential side effect of having the open area.
It's like it doesn't know how the AI doesn't know how to kind of work with it. Yeah. I feel like when it comes to tracking monsters, I think a bit more variety, like I always said, like something like tracking broken branches instead, like, oh, here's a sign, clearly this monster's bulldoze through this wall or something, a bit of variety would have been nice there, like I get over
here,
like
there is obviously limitations that they have to put in because there is no loading and like you can just run behind the monster, but it feels like something is lost there that makes it feel like it makes the monster running off feel like more of a nuisance than like an exciting bit of the fight.
Yeah, part of the hunt. Yeah. But there's things they could have done, like, like instead of like tracks being just something you run over and interact with, I know it's kind of overdone, but like a detective vision or a hunter vision where there's actual tracks left, in muddy areas, which kind of show you the way.
The issue is like, you either have to go one way about like give the monster away only it can go, which some of them are massive, so does that really make sense that you can't follow them through like a tunnel? And so you need a way to make them get out of view essentially.
But there is other ways as well, like it's like there's smart things they could do, and there's things that you could take from real life hunting, like if a monster walks through, say, a running water, you would lose the track or lose the scent. There's stuff that you can bring in there that would make the actual hunting bit a lot more engaging than just start collecting this shit and then you know exactly where it is. Like following dead smaller animals that I don't know, that
the jaguars and stuff.
But
all this stuff is fine until then you get the monster into your sights, and it's very difficult to then lose the monster once it's in your sights without having some gameplay conceit.
Yeah. But a lot of the monsters do have like a stun move, whether it's a roar or a flash, so that
stuff is fine for like, oh, it's going to stun me just to kind of signify combat is starting. But if it's going to suddenly stun you for like 20 seconds every time it needs to run away, it can kind of be a bit annoying.
But then you could just lower the amount of times it runs away. If that's the case, like if it stuns you, say you have three battles with it before you can actually kill it or capture it, and you're only getting stunned twice, that's not that too bad. Yeah. So like if it stuns you longer, and then it cheats a wee bit, once it's out of view, it spawns out or something like that, it despawns. And then it can teleport somewhere on the map and you have to retrack it again. It's cheap, but again, if you're making the hunting more interesting by adding all these little bits, you wouldn't mind it as much.
I think it's solved a bit naturally in the later levels when there's more like verticality. Because your character doesn't climb very fast.
Yeah.
Because the monsters can like leap really high really quickly. But it also made the verticality, like, the worst thing is the coral area.
Yeah.
The nest at the very top of the map.
Yeah, like, that is not fun to get to.
No.
But I actually think it's a very pretty area. I actually think the areas themselves are actually really nice.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed from playing the game, which is a really big positive, is, so the worry about the game, if I told you before we played this, oh yeah, there is 4 zones, right? Or 5 zones, right? You'd be like, it's not really a lot, is it? Right? But even like at the end game, because you don't actually, like, exploring is not really the name of the game, right? Yeah. Because literally you find some tracks and then you just beeline, like,
towards
all the way. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But because you revisit areas for story purposes, you actually unlock like different levels of those old zones. And like, I didn't realize for ages that that first zone, like, there's a whole like upper area that we just never saw whenever we were playing it.
Like the tree, you mean like up in the trees and stuff?
Yeah, like really way up there. Yeah. Like, because you don't naturally go there.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it is there, and then it's, this, that, or whatever. And I think all the zones do that, like, really well. Even at the end of the game, like, I was exploring and finding new things.
They are, like, deceptively large. Like, I think it's like you said, like, it's the amount of layers there is to it. Like, the coral one, for example, is just crazy how many layers there is to it.
Because, like, even if, like, you just look at the map, they don't look that big, but there is a lot of overlap in the way, like, the map, like, traverses and navigates itself.
I will say it makes the mini-map a wee bit hard to read sometimes, though, whenever you have several layers overlapped on top of each other. But, yeah, I'll take a slightly confusing mini-map to having a boring level.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, in terms of, like, other, like, combat stuff, so going into this, I thought, like, one of the big draws for this game for me, or at least what I thought was going to be a really big draw, was, like, the idea of, like, traps and gadgets. Because this is the kind of thing which, like, what was the other games I mentioned before, like God Eater and Dauntless? Like, that's kind of missing there. You're just kind of hitting the thing, right? Maybe using like special abilities. But in this game, it was like, oh yeah, we get these traps, but they're not like, there's very few of them, and they're not all very practical. And
like it feels very like hit and miss about, like, especially if you're playing by yourself, trying to lure a monster, like, half the time you set up a trap or an ambush and then lure the monster into it. Feels like it is probably a lot more hassle than it's actually worth. Like, if you're playing with people, it's probably fine. You can have one person go set up the trap and then the other person can lead him over to it. But, like, by yourself, that seems like a lot of effort.
But to me, like, that wasn't even the issue with the trapping. It was just a case of, like, especially when I was ranged, I would, like, let him try to do, like, a charge attack or something, and I'd like, right, okay, I'll throw this trap down here, he'll run directly at me, and the minute he hits that, he's down. Like, the traps and stuff, to me, aren't interesting. They're just another means to ending the battle, other than getting its life down to 0. I felt like they were just kind of, like, just an option to take them alive, rather than a tool to use in a fight.
Yeah.
I'd love some way to be able to, like, before you go hunt something, could I set up some sort of barrier, or, like, you know, that would make it, if the monster tries to run that way, he's blocked and he has to go another way, so I can get him to go to a certain area that I want because I have the advantage, or something like that would be quite cool.
So if I recall correct, I don't know if this, again, this is something which, like, I didn't play Monster Hunter for like ages, but I feel like I remember. So as Alex was saying, but like the X's were like monster, you get to know like where the monster is going to go. I feel like in the game I used to play, you would see the X, and you could sometimes get there first and set up the trap.
Yeah.
And that feels like kind of cool.
Yeah.
But in this game, it's more like, it's not really a trap, right? Like, you put it on the ground, then you're the bait. And then, like, they trigger it. And the thing is, like, the only 2 traps you get, at least in the base game, is they do the same thing. They, like, CC the mob, right? And that's not very interesting. Like, if you gave me, like, a trap which, like, made it a bit slower or something. Like, something a bit more, like, spammable, but less, like, egregious.
Like a tar trap or something,
Yeah, like, that, and then shoot a flare into it, Nick?
Yeah. Survival Hunter,
Yeah, right? Yeah, like, shit like that. Like, that would be really cool. And that was the thing which was probably the disappointment for me, was that I thought there would be more variety in what I would be doing besides hitting the thing.
Yeah. So a game that I think does that very well is Horizon Zero Dawn. Is it gives you a lot of really good tools to like kind of almost halt the monster for like a period of time for you to like almost, cause like you can tie it down to the, like put spikes in it and then like you can pin it to the ground to kind of tie it down for a bit, and then like almost gives you the chance to like run back, and then you can put like a tripwire trap and stuff like that down. I think it's a game that is obviously, yes, it's a lot faster paced than something like Monster Hunter, and it's a third person shooter at the end of the day, but it's something that I think deals with like this, you're one person taking on these big monsters and you're using a lot of different tools at your disposal. And I think it does it very well, that it's very easy to quickly set up in like in the middle of a combat situation. Like it's not these things that require like mass amounts of pre-planning and trying to think ahead. And I think something like that could really help Monster Hunter, like just make traps and stuff like that a lot easier to deploy mid-combat, so you're not relying on almost pure chance to have a chance to do it and then get the monster around it.
So I haven't played a Monster Hunter before. This was my first Monster Hunter. And I was like surprised that the traps are basically a cop-out, but they reward you for doing it because you skip the last phase. If you can't,
you're pretty much kind of skipping the last fight because
because if you you trap it and then you trank it, you capture it at the end.
Yeah,
but like you completely skip the last bit of the fight, but then you get more rewards for capturing it. I just find that a bit odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you're being rewarded for doing
taking
less work,
the easy
essentially,
way.
yeah. But I suppose maybe they're thinking that the trap is probably potentially harder to get set up and use in the end.
Yeah, that's the theory, right?
Yeah, in theory, like, yeah.
But, like, you use it when the monster's in the nest, so it's like...
I find that really hilarious. Is like, that's the time, like, you use it to capture. It's like, I'm going to use this trap because I'm going to ambush it in the nest while you're asleep. Which is kind of funny.
It's like opposite of Home Alone. It's like if the burglar set up traps in your house and you're the one trapped in your house.
It's alright. It wasn't very effective. It was hilarious. So, spoilers, at the end of the game, the last enemies you cannot capture.
You can't capture.
Right? Yeah. So instead of putting a stasis trap or whatever, like, there, I brought barrels with me and put up barrels next to the sleeping monster and then blew it up. It wasn't very effective, but it was hilarious. So it was, I think that's just like a missed opportunity at the end of the day. And I think some of it actually comes from this weird, like, this is the first time I think we've ever talked about, like, more tech actually limits it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. But no, I think overall, like, the actual combat is, like, really fun. Like, personally, I think that's, like, perfectly, like, really great, and I have no issue with that. It's just, like, there could have just been a bit more.
I thought the combat was fine. I don't think it's my kind of combat. But...
I don't think it's bad by any stretch. It just wasn't for me. Like, I like having feedback and things when I play games, and, like, I get there's probably people who like the more realistic aspect of, I'm reading body language and things like that to understand how this monster's doing. But if I'm fighting something that is going to take a decent chunk of time, then I want the feedback to know I'm doing the right thing and not wasting time, essentially.
But the lead up to the combat is what really turned me off from it. Like, finding the trails, catching up to the monster. Sometimes it would be pretty quick. Other times I could spend like 15-20 minutes trying to find something. And it's just not fun. Just running around like a madman looking for a trail.
Yeah.
To be fair, I actually find, like, that there's only annoying, like... And in theory, like, it shouldn't be annoying, right? Like, it should be a one-and-done thing, where, like, monsters always spawn in the same zones. Like, their starting location is, like, near enough always the same. Like, you always find the fishy dude at that water. You find the guy with the rock, like, in that little marshy bit. It
wasn't the basic enemies, it was more, like, the high-level stuff that I had the issue with, because it was the ice dragon.
Oh, you're talking about that story stuff at the end?
Not at the end, it's like... I can't remember the name of it, it begins with L, the ice one.
Oh, the flappy one. The thing. Oh, yeah.
So, it's not a high-level thing.
Yeah.
But I could not track it down. Like, it did not appear on the map. I had a trail, but the trail just did not end. So it was kind of... And it wasn't a thing of, like, it's flying about, I can see it flying about. It just wasn't there. And it didn't come up, a monster you're hunting is leaving the area. So it was there. It's just, like...
Ligiana.
I didn't have any feedback from the trail I was following. So, like, I think at the end of it, I had like a 2.5-star investigation on it because I had tracked it so long and I only ever tracked it once. Which is insane since, like, a lot of the other monsters I had tracked once had barely even 1 star in it.
It's gotta be a better hunter, man.
Yeah. So,
did you just call time on 45
so,
minutes?
like, stuff like that. If I have to be a better hunter to make stuff not take 20 minutes to appear, I'd rather just not play the game. Just straight up. Like, how can I be better to get stuff to appear faster?
So I think that stuff is... so I had this issue as well where... this is with the map, where stuff like that enemy appears in, like, the upper area, right?
Yeah, but I went to... Like, because I Googled it. Where does it appear? Because, like, I spent so long looking for it. So I went to all those places it appears, and it wasn't there, but the tracks were. Which is why I was, like, following the tracks. So it's stuff like that that really pissed me off about the game.
Any final gameplay thoughts before we mosey on?
I don't know if this falls under gameplay, but the multiplayer matchmaking, does that fall under gameplay?
Yeah, I think so.
I was surprised how clunky it felt.
Unintuitive it was for a game that is largely multiplayer. Yeah.
But that's the thing, though, is that... So I would disagree with this. I do not think the game is largely multiplayer. I do not think that is... so I thought it was. I thought, like...
the thing is, when I think of Monster Hunter, I think of, like, doing hunts with people.
Yeah, that was the first thing that came to my head. It's like, this game
was supposed to be, like, considered a jumping on point for a lot of players. So this was their idea, because it was the first time it had been brought to kind of major consoles in a long time, if ever. This was supposed to be a jumping on point for a lot of players. So they specifically made it that there's a bit more of a single player campaign, whereas in previous ones, like, it is, I think the idea of joining people and hunting monsters together is a big part of it. But what I don't understand is, how can you have a history of making 4 or 5 very strong multiplayer games and multiplayer heavy games and then fuck it up so badly?
So again, I don't think this is true. So, because if you think about it, like, previous games, they're on handhelds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like the older ones, right? And like it was like, it's difficult to like...
See, but you say that, but like, the stories you used to hear about, like, oh, people playing Monster Hunter, it was always like, oh, especially you'd hear people talk about people in Japan, like, oh, they would do it like, just, it's link play for, like, the handheld stuff. Like, it's not internet or anything. It is like them doing, like, the local network stuff, and like that's what was really big, and like them like doing it during commutes and things like that. And it just feels like, as much as, and like, I know Rise, the new one that's just come out, like, the multiplayer stuff is almost split out into its own, like, there is specific multiplayer missions, and you're almost leveling up 2 different, like, you have your village, which is like the single player stuff, and then your hub, which is like the multiplayer, and they like level independently of each other. And it just feels very weird that, like, I think it's weird when I feel like I've always considered, and I think a lot of people would have always considered Monster Hunter a multiplayer dominant series, and just playing World completely, like, almost feels like that is completely false.
Yeah, it feels like it's just a multiplayer put into it, that instead of... It feels like how a narrative first-person shooter game would do multiplayer. Like, yeah, it's there if you want to do it, but here's the kind of the main crux of the game is the single-player stuff. It's definitely the vibe I got from it anyway.
Like, saying that, I think the multiplayer stuff, when you actually can get into it and do it together, is very fun. Like, I think that is where the game shines, in terms of, like, having 4 friends, like, just bum rushing this fucking giant T-Rex thing is really fun, and the stupid shit that can happen. But yeah, like, for a series that I've always associated with multiplayer, it felt very clunky and unintuitive. Like, having to go into a mission, certain times you have to wait for a cutscene to play out, and then be like, alright, now I need to fire out an SOS flare, but then that doesn't stop random people potentially joining my game. I only want to play with friends. It's kind of weird. So, you don't need to send out the SOS. Your friends can join your quest. Oh, okay. After the cutscene. But this is the thing. Even with that, other games have done having cutscenes with a team
before this and done it quite well. So I was thinking about this. GTA Online, right? You have a party leader, and that party leader is kind of there at the forefront of any cutscene, interacting with whatever NPC it's there, while your gang is in the background fannying about. Why could you not have something similar for this, where whoever the party leader was would be at the front of the cutscenes, and you just have, say, your characters just dicking about in the background? I feel like they could have done that, and it means you don't have to wait for cutscenes to play out and time everything. You know, you can just, right, we're all in a group together, let's go do a mission. That just baffles me. Like, other games have done this so well, I don't get how this game doesn't.
I think to make it even easier, actually, I actually thought what it would be going to this, I thought it would just be the classic, like, you see your character on your screen.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be one of those games, not like, oh, we're all here. It's just like, no, this is, like, you're there in the gameplay, but, like, in the story-wise, like, it's all about me. Like,
because, like, a lot of the times there's cutscenes, there is, like, a good chunk of, like, nothing before it, because obviously you need to get to the monster to trigger the cutscene.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why you just couldn't have a party in, and then you all run and trigger the cutscene if you're all at the same point in the story. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, I think it's that. It's like, because like the error that comes up, it's like, oh, they haven't seen enough of this level yet, and it's such a weird error. I think it's just made like there's just weird limitations on the game. Again, like I think these are like simple fixes.
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things. I think it's just really weird. Yeah, that's
and I think they've almost, I think, from hearing what I've read about Rise, is I think they've kind of made steps towards fixing some of that stuff by having like dedicated multiplayer missions, like side of things that you're leveling up independently. So I think they've kind of recognized that the multiplayer stuff in world wasn't really up to snuff.
I guess the last thing about gameplay, we talked about like the actual like loop of it. Because we are talking about, so like the whole loop, which I think is I don't want to call it negative because like people do enjoy this kind of stuff. But the loop is that you kill monsters, you get pieces, you make it into better armor, and you beat bigger monsters, and you just do that. To be fair to the game, so obviously we had to like finish this game quickly, right? And I say quickly, we had like a whole month. And I like really wanted to finish this game because I quite like it. I like overall, like it is. I think it is a good game. But
spoiler alert for the review at the end. I quite likes the game. And the whole thing about the game is that, in the theory, right, is that you would hope that you would like have the armor of the previous tier, to fight the current tier or the one after or whatever. But because we were kind of rushing through this, I just had to just like play the story. And so I was going into the last mission with like, I think like tier 5 gear. And I think the last tier is like 8, I want to say. And don't get me wrong, I could get one shot, which was not fun. But like, because, and I think this is like a positive to the gameplay, because the game is in such a way where like you can outplay it. I think that's actually a good sign for the game, that you could beat the last enemy without, like, grinding.
Yeah.
But the heart of the game is the whole, like, you want to get all the cool transmogs, right? You want to get all the cool
you're
sets.
Constantly hunting the same monster to get enough parts to kind of complete the set of, like, oh, here's the full set of armor and the weapon set that I need to...
and all that shit looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like, the art style is, I think, fantastic on all that stuff.
So, story and characters. In terms of story... There is not a lot, but I do want to point out in the story characters, I think this game does like ooze a lot of charm. In like just like every time you like interact with a shop or buy a meal, just this massive flurry of a cutscene plays out, and I think there's a lot of style and charm to this game. I don't think there's any memorable characters or any memorable stories. Well, apart from that really buff cat chef, I think that's a memorable character.
Hey, you have to save the handler every time you encounter a monster.
But no, like I just think there is a lot of charm to this game, which, while it's disappointing, like I don't think this game needs like this sweeping epic story or like these super deep complex characters. I think it has that style and charm when you're in like the base and the hub area to just kind of get away with like not having all that, because I don't think it needs that. I think the charm is a much better approach. And like seeing the way like your Palico reacts to things and its adorable little face, and then the super buff Palico chef is scary, but also slightly horny. I don't know.
I feel like you're mistaking charm with just liking cats.
Maybe, but cats are charming.
Like, I will agree that like there are charming moments,
but even like overall, I think even like the cutscene that plays out whenever you buy like an item from the shop and you see all the guys like bashing away at their hammers and then being like yeah at the end, like I think it's like to me, all that stuff is really charming.
I don't find that charming. like that's just like I just like, to me, I think like there are charming moments 100% and some of the cutscenes are cute, but I think it is very light, bordering on anorexic of having kind of story and character content, this game. Like, I think it has a narrative thread, which is just to kind of let you go from mission to mission, but other than that, I could not name you a single character in this game. Like a single
The
one.
handler.
Field team leader.
Pretty sure she never actually gets a name.
I don't know, like to me, like, this is a game very much based around the gameplay, and they'll put lots of lore and stuff into it, I suppose, but there's this kind of game reminds me of Anthem in terms of like kind of the gameplay to narrative ratio.
I
like,
think
Anthem
that is doing this a massive disjustice. Injustice.
No, I just like I think Anthem's a lot of lore.
Are you saying like that every
like,
time you see like the cats preparing a meal or whatever, like it's not, oh, that's really cool, like that's cute?
I think it's cute,
but exactly. So
like,
say like Anthem literally has nothing like that. Anthem is a lifeless fucking game.
But the one cute cutscene does not make for
it's not even that. It is like the way characters react, like the way they animate, and the way they are. Yes, they look realistic, but they act like almost cartoon characters and like things like that. I think there is a lot of charm and character to just the way things animate and the way they interact with each other. I just don't see it. I just don't.
Okay, I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna like agree with Nick here, because like stuff like you remember like you do whenever you dive, like whenever your character like dives out of the way, like that, it looks goofy as hell. Like, but like in a good way. It is both realistic and really goofy, and that's like, and that adds to it. And I think the presentation of the game is like really like wholesome in a world where like.
It is presented like in this really fucking deadly, like especially when the monsters look super like pretty realistic, to be honest. Like it is presented as this like almost like swashbuckling adventure, and like that is the kind of tone it kind of keeps throughout the game. Like as much as people are putting themselves in like these super dangerous fighting these monsters, everyone is treating it like this is like an adventure and they are raring to go.
Like, do you know, let me spoil the ending for you guys, all right? Let me spoil the ending. So, at the very end of the game, the leader dude reads out a note saying how, like, oh, we're all really happy with how you've performed here, and, you know, you're all free to go back home. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, we get to go home, and blah, blah, right? Which makes me wonder what the society is in that world. But afterwards, he's like, oh, but, you know, we'd love for you to stay on with your research, and, you know, it's going to be dangerous, and blah, blah. And everyone's like, hell yeah, whoa! Except for one character who was, like, really excited to go home, and he sees everyone cheering, and he's like, like, you see him, like, look down. Like, you know, whenever you first start the game, there's the guy and the girl on the boat?
Yeah.
So the guy character, he's, like, excited to go home, and at the end of that cutscene, I was, like, cheering, and he's like, And then the girl's, like, patting him on the shoulder. Like, yeah, I think...
But like you mentioned, like even that opening cutscene where like it's like dozens of people crammed into this little boat, but you see them all like gallivanting. You see like people bringing food, and like just it does like the whole game does give off this very adventure feeling and this like kind of wholesome adventure feeling, despite what they're doing. And I think that like even mentioning this game in the same breath of Anthem in the terms of like tone and comparison, I think is doing this game a massive fucking injustice.
But that is my opinion, and I'm entitled.
Yeah, I think your opinion is fucking wrong.
And I think your opinion's wrong. That's the whole point of having opinions.
Calling this lifeless and like anything like Anthem is just you would question if you played the game.
But yeah, no, if we're talking about like story and stuff like the story is very light. I guess going into it, it's just big dragon. You find out that's going to go die. But the problem is that the place that it's going to die is going to like let off a big old explosion and kill us all. Which is why you have to like divert it to the sea so that it explodes. Okay, yeah. So this is the dumb part. You need to divert it to the ocean where it will explode, and that's fine. And then one of the characters is like, oh yeah, and like all that energy will create a new ecosystem there. And it's like, wait a second, is it not just gonna murder everything there first? Like,
it's not just gonna blow up. Anyway. Probably cause a massive tsunami.
Yeah. And then yeah, like you investigate like why like. I keep wanting to call it the life stream, but it's not the life stream. The Everstream. It's the Everstream. That's it. And you find out like about the energy there, and that's where you fight like the last boss. But it's quite an open ending. Like I said, I'm curious to know like how Iceborne works, because it's implied that the final boss is the first of these kind of creatures that we're going to see.
The Elder Dragons, I think they're called, isn't it? No, the Elder Dragons just like Zormagdaros and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all that stuff. But yeah, that's kind of it. It's just like, oh, investigate this thing. Other monsters are kind of going crazy. Go kill them. We need to investigate, i.e., you know what that means.
Murder.
Yeah. It's like, I need this guy taken care of.
I investigated this guy by plunging my sword into him. He died, funnily enough.
Yeah, like I agree with Hans that like even though he didn't actually play to them, like the story is not amazing.
Yeah, I think the story is inconsequential, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think the voice acting is actually quite good overall. To be honest,
I would agree. Yeah,
I think the lack of lip sync is really off-putting. But I think the actual voice acting,
lip synced to the Japanese, I would imagine.
Yeah, they didn't
bother like dubbing it correctly.
But man, I'm playing Final Fantasy 15 now, and like that shit looks great.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, so that's it. I think with the story.
Yeah, but like I do think there is. I just want to point out that man, that cat chef, great character design.
Hey, the handler can cook just as well.
Really? Do you see the handler cook?
Oh yeah, so that's that's another thing I didn't know either until I was told.
You cook when you go out.
Yeah, you can cook at camp. So whenever you die and lose your buffs, you can actually get them back, assuming you're not full. Yeah. And stuff like how you can change equipment and weapons, like in the tent, like you're not told that. It's there's so many systems in that game, and it's really cool. It's just you're just not told any of it.
They are not explained at all.
Yeah.
So the final category. We mentioned before that this is the 5th mainline Monster Hunter game. They did like Ultimate Editions and things like that, but I believe this is the 5th actual Monster Hunter game. And Hans mentioned before as well that they did want to make a big push to make this like the first one that kind of broke into mainstream. Like, it's always been a game series that has kind of sat on the edge of things, and it's always had like its dedicated fans, but never really was able to attract like a bigger new audience until Monster Hunter World came out. I do feel like this was the game that you definitely saw a tipping point of a lot of people who necessarily weren't big Monster Hunter fans, or a lot of people who, especially a lot of like mainstream media, like games journalists and things like that, like doing extensive coverage of the game. And I want to kind of ask why you think this was probably the game that triggered all that. Like, because as far as I can see, like from my limited knowledge of the previous ones, yes, they've streamlined a couple of things. Like they've made things probably a lot easier to like tutorialize some things. They made it easier to track up monsters and things like that. But that doesn't, to me, feel like stuff that does, like that would suddenly make this game blow up and be like, I think it was Capcom's biggest game, like their most successful game until like the RE2 remake came out.
Was this the first Monster Hunter on PC?
Yes, but it didn't originally launch on PC. It came out like 6 or 8 months later on PC.
Was this the first Monster Hunter on main consoles?
Yes.
4 was on the Wii U, I think, was it not?
Yeah, like they've been on Nintendo consoles.
No, 3 was on the Wii U, 4 was just 3DS.
Okay. But like it's typically, I think the first 2 were PSP, and then they went to the 3DS, and then they went to the Wii U and then 3DS. But like to me, like that doesn't seem like.
Oh, there's a bigger audience, right?
True, but if suddenly a mobile series comes to a main console or an actual home console, I don't think that's suddenly enough to be like, oh fuck, everyone's going to try it out and get invested in it.
I suppose it depends on what kind of game it is.
Like, I'm not saying I'm not in any way saying like I don't think it deserved to blow up. I think it is a very well made game, and I think it is rightfully so. I think people do love it. it just seems very weird to me that it felt very sudden. That like I'd always heard like one or two people like that I follow online like very dedicated about it, but suddenly the world came out and suddenly everyone fucking loved Monster Hunter. And like what made this almost blow up compared to something like, I don't know, you said God Eater, like we've played Dauntless, which Dauntless like obviously has the free to play entry point as well, where there's no upfront cost to get into it or anything. Like it just feels weird that this was the thing to blow up.
Hey, God Eater got an anime.
I think at a very basic level, I think if you were to show me this game, like a gameplay video of this in an advert, like I think the game is actually such a cool game to look at, and just like at a very basic thing, like, oh shit, this looks dope, let me check it out. Because if you were to show me like even like the Rise stuff, like watching Bungie play it on his capture card, like he was even saying to me, like, because I was streaming me playing the end of my game, and he was playing Rise, and he was like, damn, every time I look over at your screen it looks so smooth on like him playing on this like fucking Switch. And I think like even like at a basic level, just like the game looks cool, right? And that's kind of all you need to like just get someone's attention. And then whenever you play the game, like it's definitely not for everyone, but it gets that audience in that, because this game is very Japanese, right? Like in its design, and I think people are probably not going to give the game the chance. But then whenever you see it, you're like, oh shit, let me try this. And it's like, oh wait, this isn't complete bullshit. Like this is really kind of cool. That's like a very basic thing.
I think as well, like Alex is kind of right in the sense that this sort of game, like released on a 3DS, not a lot of quote-unquote casual gamers would have, say, a 3DS, whereas they would have an Xbox, they would have a PS4, and this would come out and just be like, they would see the trailers, like I always said, like, oh, this looks cool, and because they have that access, more likely to have an access to a PS4 and an Xbox rather than a 3DS, I would say that's probably why. Like, I bet you there are probably people who bought this game and played it, and there's going to be a big split between people going like, oh fuck yeah, this is great, and some people who have bought it, played it, and like, this is just not for me.
Oh wait, actually, like, sorry, this is even more basic, but it's probably a better reason. Streaming culture. You don't see people streaming like handheld games, right?
True.
But
very true.
If you see someone streaming Monster Hunter World or something, you're like, oh shit. And then it's one of those games, it's one of those skill-based games, let's call it, where you're like, oh, I could do that better, right? And then I'm going to pick it up, and then I'm going to play, and then I get my ass whooped, right? But man, this thing is fun, right? So, I to be honest, I think streaming culture might actually be it. Like, there's so many games which I, like, have gotten into, like, at least interested in, because, oh shit, I saw this YouTube video, or this Twitch person who I like watching tried this game out. It's... Yeah, this is the world we live in, guys. Be a VTuber. Don't be a YouTuber.
Be a VTuber, yeah.
Be a VTuber, yeah.
There you
go. There is a free
VTube studio thing, yeah.
Join us for our next show, guys.
Oh, damn, Alex has guessed my Game Club game. No, I think it's interesting, and I think obviously the success of Rise has led to not necessarily people copying, but it's definitely led to, like, I've definitely seen like games like Dauntless and things like that like get a lot more buzz because they are seen as alternatives to Monster Hunter. And I think I'm shocked there almost isn't more, to be honest, because it does seem like something that is like ripe for someone to try and almost take the crown, to use a phrase.
Plus, the movie came out roughly the same time, did it not?
No, the movie came out. So the movie came out at the end of last year.
Oh, did it? Yeah. Oh,
I really want to watch it. Like,
do you?
I do. It's one of those things like it's awful, but like
it's morbid curiosity.
Yeah, right. I want to see a guy with like an M16 against a Rathalos. Like, I want to see that, and then be like, yeah, this is dumb.
You don't need to see the movie for someone to say that is dumb. So, personally, I can see a lot of really, really cool things in Monster Hunter. Like, I think it's the amount of weapon variety and things like that. I think the hunts themselves can be really fun. But for me, it's just down to personal that I don't really enjoy the combat and the kind of lack of information you're getting during the combat. And I know that is a 100% personal thing, and I'm sure for people that is 100% what they're looking for, but for me it wasn't. But I can also I can see why this could be someone's game. The downside is I think it's the sort of thing you probably need to play to realize if it's for you or not, but thankfully the game does kind of go on sale every so often. But it's probably the kind of thing that you will need to play to see if you kind of want to engage with that. But everything surrounding the combat I think is really cool and really top notch. And if that's the only question you're asking yourself, I think it's 100% worth taking the dive and like taking that risk to see if you will like the combat or not. Hans.
I'm weirdly enough kind of still on the fence about the game. I think
we didn't do it on the fence for this.
I know, maybe right? Which is the weirdest thing. I don't like. I do. I enjoyed my time with it. I probably enjoyed my time with it more than I thought I would. But there's a couple of things in there I just left me kind of scratching my head. Like, for a game that I personally thought would be very multiplayer focused, just the whole online aspect of it was very clunky. It's definitely not for everyone. It's going to divide a lot of people. So it's weird. Like our whole thing is like, would I recommend it to people? Probably not, because I would say it's going to be really 50-50 on whether someone would like it if I recommended it to them. So a tentative 7 out of 10 for me. Like
I'd buy a 7 out of 10 game.
Like I'm still just on the fence. I'm still just I don't know what to think about it.
I think for Hans, Hans really enjoyed it whenever it was all with us.
Yeah.
I think we would all really enjoy it if it was all with us, because it fixes quite a few of the I say quite a few. Yeah. It fixes some problems where it's
I feel like I can't get a moment's respite to heal in an almost unfair way and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the whole investigation stuff. Could you imagine if we had 4 people just splitting up, and then you launch a flare in Dauntless? I'm over here, guys. That shit's cool. If you could do that.
That flare shit in Dauntless is incredible. I think it's the greatest thing.
I think if the game had a bit more thought into multiplayer, online multiplayer, then I think this could be good for a lot more people.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Alex.
So I actually played this on console because it's on the Xbox Game Pass, and I stopped after the first hunt because I was like, you know what? This game isn't for me. However, I did kind of enjoy this game, but more so when we were all playing together. When I was doing the story by myself, I was not having fun at all. It got to this stage, like I said to you guys, that I just called people in for some of the missions because I just could not be asked with it. So, if you have a group, I would say go for it, because it's probably going to be more fun anyway. Even if you're not overly keen on a lot of the mechanics and stuff, it's always fun with a group. But as a solo experience, I can't bring myself to recommend it.
Oh,
yeah, I think I'm the opposite of Nick, who doesn't like it, but appreciate people who like it, and I'm I really like the game, but I appreciate why there are things which other people don't like. Because I think overall it is a well-made game. It's just, there are just some mechanics that just are a bit odd, or that seem a bit dated these days. But I think overall, I would recommend it because, unlike Hans, who says, 50-50, you shouldn't take that chance. You miss 100% of the chances you don't take, right? And so you gotta at least try it, right? You gotta at least try.
So what we've learned is IOI is glass half full. I am glass half empty.
Yeah, exactly, right? So yeah, I think give it a go. What's the worst?
I will say that playing this, and I would like to play Rise, but I would not like to play Rise by myself.
Yeah.
So you're buying us all Rise. Wow, Hans, you're so kind.
Yeah, how nice of you.
If I buy us Rise, we're doing it for the channel. Simple as. Awesome. But that's my thing. Is I would Like, I'm very much curious for Rise because, again, it's onto a console. I know kind of the Switch is that weird hybrid between console and handheld, but they have said that Rise will be coming to console and PC further down the line, I believe. So I am very curious to kind of see what's the next step, because this was very much a jumping on point, or they want this to be a jumping on point for people. So what's the next step after that?
See, I fear like overall they haven't really changed that much.
Yeah,
which I think would maybe put you guys off. I think they more like added stuff rather than like changed existing
refined
stuff.
Refined it, yeah.
Dude, yeah. I just want to get it, like, I just want a simplified version of getting in to play with my friends. Like, that's all I want. I'm not looking for like a massive gameplay overhaul. I just want like, hey, here's you and your party with your mates, go to a mission. That's all I want. None of this firing SOS flares and red flags and whatever else.
I know Hans always takes the piss when I say that, but I feel like this actually really is mixed opinions.
No, it is.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Hans always takes the piss when I say that.
Yeah, that's because you used to say it for everything.
So, before we wrap up for today, there is one piece of business we need to attend to, as always. That is April's game, which is my choice, and I forgot to look something up before this, but we're going to run with it. A while ago on Game Club, I asked us to play a game called A Way Out, and it was good fun. And I'm asking us now to reignite that and regroup with our co-op buddies to play the follow-up to A Way Out. It Takes Two.
Wait, it's a follow-up?
Yep. Well, it's the same studio. It's the same studio.
Yeah, I was gonna say that game does not look like.
It's a follow-up in that it's their next like big co-op game.
Did you not know that whatever character dies, its spirit goes into these like little toys? Yeah. That's the whole thing.
So yes, we will be buddying up again.
It's me and Hans.
Yep. Me and I.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick forewarned me of this, so I could temper my expectation.
And we will be co-oping together, and means yes, only like 2 of us actually need to buy it because they have that friend pass system again. So. Sweet.
Oh shit! I forgot about that.
So
is it on EA Play?
I think it is, yeah.
It might be.
It'll probably be the Pro one, not the one that's included with
premium one.
Game Pass.
Yeah.
So yes, join us.
You can get 10 hours of it, actually. They do like 10 hours of the most recent releases or something. Yeah.
So join us at the end of April, where we'll be coming back to talk about It Takes Two. But for now, it's goodbye from Hans.
Have a good one.
A goodbye from Alex.
See you later.
A goodbye from my wife.
Toodaloo.
And a goodbye from myself. See you next time.